theyeshiva.net.
In Perek Daled, page 88, Nitzavim, we learned the Teichen, the deeper understanding of the last kapitel in Tehillim, Kufnun, Kapitel Kufnun, the final Mizmor of Tehillim, which is also said every morning in Psukkah de Zimra. And it's not stam brought in here like based on the above. We'll also learn, we'll also understand this kapitel, that too. But you see the diuk when you learn Masechta Rosh Hashanah. It happens to be that we learned it this morning. Rosh Hashanah Daf Lamed Beis. The Mishnah says that we say 10 psukim for Malchias and for Zechronis and for Shofars. On Rosh Hashanah by Musaf, there is a theme. The theme is Hashem's Malchus, and we say 10 verses to express that point. The theme of Zechronis, his memory, and the theme of Shofars, and each one is 10 psukim. And the Gemara says, why 10? So Rabbi Levi brings Keneged Asari Hilulim Shebesefer Tehillim. It corresponds to 10 Halalukas, the 10 times you have Hilul, praising in Tehillim. Frag the Gemara, 10? You have many more times. You have more than 100 times Hilul in Tehillim. So the Gemara answers, we're talking about one kapitel. The kapitel that says Hallelu B'Seika Shofar, how many times do you have Halalukas there? So you have Hallelu Kel B'Kotche, Hallelu B'Kiyuzoi, Hallelu B'Gvroisov. You have 10 Hallelus, excluding the opening and the end of the Mizmor. And that's why every Rosh Hashanah we say 10 psukim for Malchi, Zechronis, and Shofars. So it's not stam, this Halalukas as I brought in here. When you learn the Sugi in Rosh Hashanah, you see that it's deeply connected. And then it's also connected to the Asara Mamoris and also the Asara Sadibris, which is also connected to this whole Parsha. Someone just wanted to make that odd, it's very interesting. So what are these different experiences that the person is experiencing or invoking or becoming aware of during davening? So every time there's a different hallelu. If it would be just one theme or even different themes but somehow connected, there would be one hallelu. Every time there's a different hallelu because it's a whole different inyan that you're exploring here. And therefore it requires a special hallelu, a special halleluka, which means a special praise, a special extolling, a special meditation and awareness. It begins with Hallelu this is Hallelu B'Seika Shofar, which we're going to get to. But they don't have patience. So. We learned also about the Vasikin today, right? So it begins, it's a mazel they don't blow like in Nusa Chabad when we blast the ganze Meise. Hallelu Kel B'Kotshoi is the first one. What's B'Kotshoi? B'Kotshoi is, as we said, Kodesh HaElyon, Levadoi, Morim V'Kodesh HaMelech HaMerumam, Levadoi, Me'oz, Meshubach V'Mefoyer V'Misnasi B'Meisoyla, Kodesh HaElyon, Kel Elyon, which is the concept of Levadoi, that Hashem himself is beyond any gedder of hashpa, of communication. Hashem Elokecha, Eish Oichlu. And Eish, the trend of Eish is to go up, not to go down. Unlike Mayim, where the trend is to go down. All hashpa and amshacha from Ein Sof is already a yiride, it's a hishtalshalus. All articulation is an ultimate compromise of truth. And therefore, even though it's necessary when you want to create a world that has identity, even the most sublime spiritual world, nonetheless, is already the opposite of Kel Elya. It's an opposite Nekuda. And when there's Gili Alakuz Ba'atzma, he says there's no Hashpa. It's Kel Elya and Ram V'Nissa V'Gavoya Mai, that's Hallelu Kel B'Kotcha. But from there comes Rakiya Uzay. What's the Rakiya Uzay? The Oyer and the Chiyus, which is Ein Sof, comes through a firmament, which a firmament represents a masach, a veil, a curtain, that conceal this infinite reality, and therefore ultimately this concealment will allow there, after many more gradations, to be a world, and to be many worlds will be able to emerge. So after Bekotshoi, step 2 is Rekiya Uza. Step 3 is Gvuroisav. Gvuroisav is the way Hashem compresses, restricts, channels, and filters the energy of Ein Sof in many, many, many different garments, meaning many different facets, tools, vehicles of expression. A garment here, of course, is a metaphor, a lavush. Every person has a different lavush. In other words, a different way in which the oil is communicated. It has a different garment, meaning it comes out in a different way. It's manifested in a different way. Many different madregas, many different states of consciousness. And that way the oil and the chiyus is communicated kav lekav. Kav lekav, ze'er sham, Masak in Yeshaya, I think is the Haftarah of Shmois. A line to a line, a little here, a little there. So ultimately all the worlds, Elyonim, Tachtoinim, higher, lower, and within each world itself, every nivra could receive its chiyus, its consciousness, its battery, its gas, its kerosene, its fuel, which gives it its design, its chemistry, physically, spiritually, its design, its functionality, and its purpose in the scheme of creation. That's Bigvuraisav. From Bigvuraisav we come to the next stage, which is Hallelujah Kil Roiv Gudloi. Roiv Gudloi means you praise the tremendous greatness which represents the infinite diversity of creation. As a result of all these tzimtzumim, of all these veils, of all these alemus, now you can have myriads and myriads and endless types of creations, both spiritually and physically. The pasuk says, "Alamois ein mispar" in Shir Hashirim, and Chazal say, "Oilamus ein mispar." And in each world, ein mispar likdudav, the Navi says, there's no number for the legions. Kiroiv gudloi, the absolute godless, which was explained before. What's godless? Godless doesn't mean the big bully. Godless means the infinity, the infinite diversity, the presence of Hashem in every single nivra, like we say by davening, Va'ata mechayes kulam. That roiv gudlo is only possible after Rekiya Uza and Gvuroisav. And all this is hallelujah b'seika shofar. To be able to bring out the Tkiyas Shofar, to be able to arouse, to be able to evoke the Tkiyas Shofar. What's the Tkiyas Shofar? The Pnimiyus Nekudas Halev, the cry that comes from the core of the heart, beyond oisius, beyond letters, beyond words, beyond dibur. It's a kol pashat, it's a Tkiyah. This is the Lecha Malibi Bakshu Fane, it's Hallelujah B'Seika Shofar. Like we learned, there is the Chitzonius Halev, the cry that comes from the external heart, which is based on oisius, because it's based on tam, it's based on das. It's the way I could wrap my brain around a lakus due to the gvuroisav, due to the Rekiya Uza. That's the Keroiv Gudla. But after the whole ishtalshalus happens, until the Ein Sof trickles down to the reality of the human being and the reality of the world here, based on all the restrictions. So you have the Chitzonius Halev, which is the Achrei Hashem Elokeichem Yelechu Ka'arya Yishag, the roar of the lion, which comes from tremendous passion and gusto because of the presence of the Elokus in the world that the person is aware of and can comprehend, at least according to his or her capacity, each nivra lefi erkai, and that creates a certain tremendous, powerful yishag, a roar, but that's all chitzonius alev. The lecha malibi bakshu fanayas panecha Hashem avakesh. The pnimius comes from as panecha Hashem avakish, that I look for your pnimius, not for your chitzonius. I look for your pnimius. That since chelik Hashem amay and Yisrael olav b'machshava, so the Jewish soul is a violin, it's a harp, not only for the music of creation, and not only for the music of the Creator, but also for the music of the pnimius of the Creator, of the core of the Creator, beyond the world. That's what the shofar brings out. And therefore there's no words there, there's no oisius. Oisius, which is based on division of oisius, fragmentation, identity of dibur, could only be in chitzonius halev. Whenever there's tam v'das, there's reason, there's logic, it can come into dibur. From seichel comes oisius. But that which is l'mayla mitam v'das, this is the simple pshitas dika cry that comes from Pnimiyas Halev, where the Pnimiyas Halev reaches in from Imamakim Krasicha Hashem, for B'chol Moedecha, the Tshuva Ilah, to go back all the way to the source, hallelujah, B'seika Shofar. So the whole Hishtalshlus is that afterwards you come down with the Tkiyah Shofar, you go up all the way back to the original source, to the original core of the Pnimiyas Halev, which touches the Pnimiyas of the Ein Sof, which is beyond the Hishtalshlus. That's the structure of this Mizmor that David HaMelech is conveying. In other words, you go beyond the Mayim, you go to the Eish. So now he continues the next step. Perek Hey, Ois Hey. Achadover agoyrem amshacha. B'pchinis Eish oich l'pchinis katsha. U'pchinis keil elyon. V'liyos Yisrael odu b'machshava v'chelik Hashem amoy. Sheyuchlu la'oir his galus pnimiyas malchusi yizbarach me'atzmusim u'usik in isker le'el. Hinehu liyos ein melech b'loyam. What causes the Teika Shofar, the Shofar, which accesses the Eish, the fire, the Kotcha, back to the Shofar takes you back to Halalukel B'Kotcha, the Keil Eliyah, which, as we said before, because Yisrael Olav Machshava. Machshava is the Pnimiyus of Dibur. Machshava is higher than Dibur. The Jew is connected to Machshava, the thought, and Chelik Hashem Amay, so he can arouse the revelation of the Pnimiyus of his Malchus from his essence. This is connected to what Chazal say, Ein Melech B'Loyam. There's no king without a nation. And he teaches here, Am. What does the word Am mean? Pirush, Sheim Nikru B'Madregas Amoy, Sheim Anoshim Kemoisai. The word Am is associated with the word Im. Im means with. Leilech Imoy, with him. In other words, there's a connected. Madregas Amoy, his nation, Sheim Anoshim Kemoisai. There's a comparison, there's a similarity. Ein Melech B'Loyam means there's no king without a nation, but this nation is called Am, Im, because they're with him. They're connected to him, they're associated with him. What's Pshat? U'mesiyachasim me'lov be'erech ma. They have some type of yachas. Rak shehem apchusim shebemadregas v'gavoyam aleim v'lachei nikra melech aleim. Obviously they're lower than him, he's above, and that's why he's called the king. But there has to be a relationship. And here we have an issue. Mashenkin lagabe kutshe brichu b'chvoide be'atzmai ein aroich elav. How can then Hashem be called a melech? Lagabe Hashem, in his essence, there's no erech to him. There's nothing that has any erech, any value where you could say that they have some form of proximity that he could be a melech over him. And he gives a mashal. Kamashal, let's give a metaphor. Ilu noimer, let's say about somebody. You want to feel like a king. Anybody here wants to feel like a king? So what do you want to feel like a king? Okay, me too. So what do? So you have an eitzah. The problem is it's not so easy to feel like a king in this world, especially when you're surrounded by people who, for whatever reason, don't think you're a king. So that's a shtickle problem. So different people have different ways of dealing with it. Trump has his way of dealing with this complex. All of us have our own ways. But once you have an eitzah pshuta, the eitzah is, what's the problem? A king needs to rule, yeah? So go to your backyard and announce to all the sticks and all the trees and all the plants and all the blades of grass, from today, ich bin the melech. I'm the melech. No one should have the chutzpah to even think, forget say, think anything that's not according to what I want. And you really prove your dominion. You crush them, you destroy them, you repress them, you control them, you fence them in, and you come to your therapist and you say, I feel like a king. We all know that it's not going to work. The trick is not going to work. Why? So he says, Kamashal ilu noimer. Person says, I'm becoming a king over the trees and the rocks, all the pebbles in my yard. I'm the melech. Not only in my yard, the whole forest around me, 20 acres. It's all under me. She'enam, why? She'enam in amin v'hasug she'yisyachiz v'tipal aleim shem ha'melech liyas malchus nikra aleim. To be able to say, he is my melech, or I'm your melech, the melech and the am have to be in the same sug. They have to be in the same category. So you could say there should be the chalois shem malchus. Emes, the melech is above. The definition of melech is he's a king. He's the leader. The leader, by definition, leads. He doesn't follow. But to who are you leading? You're leading those who are connected to you, who are in a relationship with you, who understand you. You understand them. You have similarities. So he says, if it's not in the same sug, the whole Shem HaMelech doesn't apply. Lias Malchus. Emes, you could control the Eitzim and Avonim. Nobody doubts that the Avonim, the stones, you could control. But it doesn't turn you into a Melech, Malchus. When you say Ein Melech B'lo Yam, it can't mean, okay, so we'll take a bunch of rocks, and all the rocks will become my nation. It's not going to work. What creates Malchus is that there is a Yachas, there's a relationship. We have an issue here. When you say Hashem is a Melech, the Gemara says in Masechta Rosh Hashanah, Imru lefanei Malchi is b'Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah daf Tazayin. Imru lefanei Malchi is b'Rosh Hashanah. Kedei shetamlichuni aleichem. You should make me a Melech over you. Really? You're going to make God a Melech over you? The relationship between the human and the rock is much closer than the relationship between the Nivra and the Boire. Take a bunch of ants, forget rocks, take a bunch of ants even, who are living organisms, not a rock, not inorganic material. Take organisms and become a melech. It's also not exactly going to fly. Take a bunch of mosquitoes, or bees, or ants, lock them up, and say, I'm the melech. It's also not going to create malchus. Because again, you're not in the same sug, you're not in the same min. Even though the similarity between us and ants is far, far, far closer than the similarity between us and God. Both of us are created beings. Both are finite. They have a certain consciousness and emotions. Some ways they're probably smarter than us. Certainly in some ways more efficient. Certainly they get along better together, even though we have our stuff, our milas. And in that sense, there's a certain relationship. Still, you can't be a melech over ants. Certainly a melech over rocks or stones or wood. Here we say, Shetamlichuni aleichem, Hashem HaMelech over you. Even if you go, I remember Ilan Rimon went in a spaceship, he took a little Sefer Torah, and then it exploded over Palestine, Texas. One Shabbos morning, I think it was. So I was watching an interview when he was in outer space. They interviewed him, and they asked him, what does planet Earth look like from your perspective? So he says, it's so tiny. I don't know why there's so much fighting. You know, you look at planet Earth from outer space, it looks smaller than a marble, smaller than a cholent bean, smaller than a speck of dust, literally, tiny. How many wars and conflicts and issues there are is really astounding when you look at it from that perspective. But that's not from a divine perspective. That's from a spaceship's perspective. That's from outer space. It's within the universe. True, it's pretty far away and pretty scary up there, perhaps, but it's still all relative. You're still dealing within the understanding of creation. So even from that perspective, the entire planet, never mind the human race, is tiny. Now come from the Creator's perspective, who is beyond, and not the whole planet, one human being. That's even from the Creator's perspective. Now speak about Hallelu Kel B'Katsha. Even the Creator's perspective, we explained, is already after Mayim and Tzimtzum, and it trickles down. Now come from the B'Katsha, B'chlal not B'Erech. So what's the Havana that in Rosh Hashanah God says, I need you to make me king. And if I make him king, so this is the Shaila here. What's the Inyan? Well, here we come back. If you remember to Siv Beis, now we go back to the bris, the covenant. You remember when he spoke about David and Yonis, two friends that make a Chris's bris. This is the covenant that Moshe Rabbeinu was referring to. Atem Nitzavim hayoim la'avrecha b'bris Hashem. What's the covenant? What's pshat? K'moi b'mashal anal. Back to the mashal of the two friends who make a bris. Sha'oisem etzad ha-bris v'aiskashrus. We explained that sometimes you have a friendship. What do you need a bris for? If it makes sense to love him, you love him. And if not, why should you love him? The pshat is we know that there's many obstacles to love. And the bris, the covenant, allows the friendship to graduate in a manifested way from a rational place to a super rational place. And when both are committed to the bris, you're both committed not to allow anything to come in between the friendship, even though there's going to be reasons within or without to destroy it. That's what the bris is. That's the concept of a bris. What's the lashon and The end of Masechta Gittin. The last line of Masechta Gittin. Of Tzaddik. The whole Gemara ends as a very moving end. Amar Rebbe Lazar. Tzaddik Amad Beis. Kol ha-megarish ishta yeshoyna afilu mizbeach mered alav d'mayos. Somebody who divorces his first wife, even the altar starts crying. Shenemar. This is the pasuk. The pasuk says in Malachi, and this is the last Navi, and he brings the whole pasuk. V'zois shenis tasu. Malachi laments what the Jews did. He says v'zois shenis tasu. Ksois dima es mizbach Hashem. You covered God's altar with tears. Pchi v'anoka, full of lamenting and weeping. Me'enoit pnois la mincha v'lakachas ratzin miyetcha. The Mizbeach couldn't anymore accept your gifts. It was too sad. V'amartem alma. So you say, why? Why is the Mizbeach so upset at me? Why is the Mizbeach crying? Al ki Hashem hey, listen to these words. Al ki Hashem heyid beincha ubein eishes nurecha asher ata bagadeta ba v'hi chavertecha ve'eishes brisecha. Because God testified what happened between you and the wife of your youth. You betrayed her, and she was your best friend and the wife of your covenant. She was Eishes Brisecha, the wife of your covenant, and therefore Mizbeach Mered Alav D'mayos. What's the concept here? What's this concept of Eishes Brisecha? Why Mizbeach Mered Alav D'mayos? What are the tears? The manavshich, if the marriage is working, it's working. If it's not working, there's a concept of divorce. The Torah itself legislates divorce. The reason Torah legislates divorce, because you need that option in life. If that option doesn't exist in life, it's not good. Sometimes it needs to happen. Sometimes, for whatever reason, it's sad, but it needs to happen. What's the Mizbeach Mered Alav D'mayos? Mizbeach Mered Alav D'mayos says because marriage is a concept of bris. Hi chavertecha ve'eishes brisecha. There's a concept of a covenant. What's the covenant? The covenant means that there's going to be obstacles. There are obstacles. There's challenges. Sometimes it's such where the Torah itself says that there's a concept of a get, a divorce. Sometimes it's such where the human being is challenged, both the spouses are challenged to be able to transcend their tam v'das and to be able to go into a much deeper place and find the relationship on a level of bris. But the relationship of a level of bris turns it into a sacred connection that is not just utilitarian. It's not just utilitarian, it's not just practical. What is it in the Nimshal? So he says, Yonason could have looked and said, logically it doesn't, you should be my enemy. You're right. The good questions. The bris made the relationship so deep that it goes beyond logic. It's like somebody says, logically I should hate myself. You're right. But you don't, right? I know logically you should hate yourself. Yeah, you're not the first one who thinks so. But nonetheless, you're going to still continue liking yourself, hopefully, if you're a healthy guy. You know why? Not because you're a meshugana. Because you're a person, you're supposed to like yourself. I'll call pshoim techasa ava. You're going to find reasons. I'll be seichel, you could say I'm supposed to hate myself. Fine. I'll be seichel, I have to hate myself. But my relationship with myself is deeper than a mathematical equation. You're right. If it's all mathematics, if it's all logic, so you take hate yourself. The bris says that we're almost going to force ourselves to love each other. Now, when he says force, he doesn't mean literally. You can't force yourself to love somebody. Then it's not love. What he means force yourself is, the seichel says it's force. It's not really force. It comes from a deeper place, from your essence. Mitzad the seichel says, what is this about? So he says, kach. So now listen to his nimshal. This is groise Werte here. Kachine asa Hashem lanu. Kachine asa Hashem lanu. This is what Hashem did with us, for us. Shehichriach es atzmoi kevayachal. Kevayachal, he forced himself, he compelled himself. Lekasher nafsheseinu bo yizbarach. To connect our souls with him. Liyos Yisrael olu b'machshava. The Medrash says in Bereshis that the whole world is created through dibur. Ba'asara ma'amoris nivra ha'olam. which, by the way, one of the reasons for the 10 psukim of Malchi is again, Basara Mamoris Nivroid. It's the same Nakuda of the Halalukas. It comes into Dibur. Dibur is always words. Yisrael Olo b'machshava. They ascended in God's thought. In other words, deeper than words. Words is for everybody else. Machshava is for yourself. Nobody knows what other people think. We know what other people say because we hear it. What other people think, the Gemara says in Pesachim, Ein Adam Yedei Ma B'liba Shel Chaverei. What does it mean, Yisrael Olo b'machshava? What's the difference in machshava and dibur? In this manner we understand. Dibur is the divine energy that is extroverted. What's the word? It's the divine energy that is extra... It's projected outward. Machshava is the internal self. Yisrael Olo b'machshava. Because Yisrael Olo b'machshava, therefore the soul of the Jew is a harp for the machshava, not only for the dibur. It transcends the pnimius. So he says, "Hichriach es atzmei kavayachal lekash nafshe seinu ba'yisrael Yisrael Olo b'machshava v'sheyizgala oir pnimius malchus yaleinu." The oir of the pnimius of his malchus should be revealed on us. V'zel la'avrecha b'bris. That's what he means, la'avrecha b'bris. So what's the bris? Rationally, you could say it doesn't make sense. God needs you. God needs me less than you need the rock to be a melech on the rock. It's like telling me that the rock coming under your domain is what's going to build your malchus. It's a joke. Forget a rock. I told you, even an ant. You could be a melech over, go to an ant colony. You ever went to an ant colony? How many ants do they have there? They could have 100 million ants, yeah, and become a melech. And then you'll say Napoleon was an emperor. Napoleon's a joke. Napoleon, me, 100 million. Who has 100 million under them? I'm the emperor. But you understand that it's not exactly the same thing. Why is it not the same thing? Because there's no erech. There's no relationship. It's not like you're called a melech on the ants. First of all, they don't know you're the melech. All they know is even though you could step with your pinky, you could murder, you could kill 20,000 ants berega echad. So you're the real melech. You're like the dictators of old. You're like Shtikl Nebuchadnezzar and a Titus and a Nimrod or a Louis XIV or a Caligula. But nonetheless, it's not. They're not even aware of you. They're completely not aware of your presence. There's no appreciation. Forget about that. There's no choice. So this is even with humans and other creatures which have an erech. We're both part of creation. Never mind with the Creator. What's this? This is the concept of a bris. The concept of a bris is al pi tam v'das, al pi rational calculations. This relationship at some point can go two ways. And the emes is that in many works of Jewish philosophy, this point is brought out very sharply and with a conclusion. And the conclusion is there's no real relationship with God. There can't be. It's all Torah, all mitzvahs, it's all for us. You're going to touch him, you're going to affect him. Tamlichuni, you're going to make him your melech. What are you going to do? You're going to make a perfect being who's infinite, a melech on you. And if you don't make a melech on him, he's going to go into a depression. And say, oh, Nebuch, I'm a lonely guy. This little creature didn't make me a melech. The whole ability for this person even to think is coming from him. Forget about the fact that he's infinite and you're finite. Your ability even to think is coming from him. So he's making himself a melech over himself. Thank you. Even a better idea. Instead of going to the stones and making them a melech, why don't you go to yourself and say, I'm becoming a melech over myself. Now that's taka hard. It's easy to be a melech over Avanim. But who's giving you the chiyus right now? It's also him. A real king gets a thrill. Yeah? Hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people are under his command, under his dominion. Here, all the people are just him. It's all divine energy. So he makes energy, it's all his energy, and then they have to make him a king when the whole energy came from him. Al pitam v'das taka, it's just too distant. We don't have that value and significance to be able to say that our melucha, our tamlichuni aleichem does something. The Chiddush, what Moshe Rabbeinu says, the Chiddush of Yiddishkeit, the way the Balatanya understood it here is he's saying in this Maimah is la'avrecha b'bris. A bris, as David told Yonis, and didn't say, he said about him when he was killed, Nifleisa v'oscheli me'avas Moshe. Tsar li alecha achi Yonis, Nifleisa. He says, Hini anoichi koides bris neged kol amche esen nifloyas. Pella. Pella means l'mayla ben adas. The concept of a bris is, al pi seichel, you could say this friendship is not supposed to work. But he chriach es atzmai. Because God also is not coerced in any choice or no choice. So therefore he chose. He was kivayachal l'mayla mitam v'das. This relationship that the pnimius of Elikus and the pnimius of the neshama are one, are connected.
We analyze this a minute.
Yeah.
So if with David and Yonasan, they have a friendship which can exist by das. That makes sense. They elevate it with a bris to something al-mal on das, so it's commitment. Same with, let's say, a husband and wife or something else. And so therefore there can be a chitzonius kind of commitment, and then when you go l'mal midas, there can be a more panemius kind of commitment. With the Rabbanu Shalom, he doesn't have we have nowhere to start with him. So when he's creating this bris, he's going all the way to the panemius level, but there's really no chitzonius level to start with, because as you said, it's like the ants and the rocks thing. So he has to jump to 2 steps. The usual bris that we've discussed is you take it from step 1 to step 2. But his bris, so therefore, if we say that we have a bakshu panai, which is a chitzoniistic bakasha, relating to the world, and a bakshu panai, which is pnimic, on what basis do we have a chitzonius relationship?
Oh, so the chitzonius we spoke till now, that's the fact that he creates the worlds. Va'atem achayis kulam, and invests his energy in the universe, and therefore the perik shira, every creature, when it senses that, becomes aroused with a relationship. That's the first pchina.
So that can be even by das. That we can evoke that's by das.
The chiddush here is the halaluka halalu b'teika shofar that reaches into the eish oichla, the kel elyon. From the pnimiyas, that's the chiddush here of the bris. And that's what he says. V'zeu la'ovrecha b'bris. Al derech shekosov we have in Shiras Hayam. Ki ad yaver amcha Hashem, ad yaver am zukanisa. At the end of the shir, he says, Tviyema v'setema b'har nachalos. Before that, what's the lashon? B'gdol zroya chayid mukaven ad yaver amcha Hashem ad yaver. So he teaches what's pshat ad yaver. Dahainu laver mimadrega lemadrega mimata lemayla. Me aver shalamata min adas ad aver elyono shalamayla min adas. La'avrecha means to pass. Ad yaver, you're passing, you're moving up from space to space, from step to step, from lower to higher, from an ava that is below das to an ava elyoina, the love of Hashem that is beyond das, shirak pchinas bris, which is basically exclusively the bris ashakaras Hashem leman hakim. That's what David continuing Atem Nitzavim. Ashakaras Hashem leman hakim oischa leman hakim oischa liyas loy la'am. The words of Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, Atem Nitzavim ayom kolchem lefnei Hashem Elokeichem, and he goes through all the 10 madregas, like we spoke before, the achdus of the Jewish people. La'avrecha bebris Hashem, to pass in the bris of Hashem, asher Hashem Elokeicha koyri simcha ayom, leman hakim oischa ayom loy la'am. It's a covenant he's making with you to make you his nation, and he's going to be your God. So he teaches, Pirush ki ein melech b'loyam. V'tzarich l'krisis bris. So what do you need a krisis bris? Lahakim. That's why it says lahakim. To lift you. U'leroimim moischa k'dei shetiyah b'bchinas am. You should be able to be an am. Liyas Yisrael alu at b'chinas machshava elyoina v'hu yizbarach hishpil es atzmi k'vayachal liyas l'chal elikim. It goes in 2 directions. Lahakim moischa. Hakim means literally like kima, to stand up, to raise you from the finite to the infinite. You should be able to be called his nation. A nation that can coronate a king. A nation that can say, if not for us, there's no king. If not for us, there's no tamlichuni aleichem. Really? Ad kedei kach? Such a power? How do you have this? L'man hakim oischa. That you should be able to be an am. There should be able to be that level of yachas. There should be able to be that connection. This is a psachidish, it's a bris. And v'hu yi l'chal elikim is an equal chiddush. He should call himself your God. We say in Krishma, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, Ani Hashem Elokeichem. You stop and think, really? That's how he defines himself. I am your God. People define themselves usually by their portfolios that are impressive. Somebody says, I'm your melech, I'm your king, I'm your leader. It means something. The fact, the great miracle, the great chiddush is that he says, V'hu yi l'chal elikim. So he says, Hishpil es atzmai. What that means is that he defines himself by you. That's how I'm going to start defining myself. That couldn't come from a rational need. Very often a relationship is, I love you because I need you. You do something for me. We're limited people. We need companionship. We're lonely. We need camaraderie. We need validation. We need relationships. It's not a bad thing. We need attachment. All of us need attachments. And when we don't have it, there's a pain that's created. The pain sometimes results in loneliness or in anger or in frustration or whatever it is. But there's a pain that comes from the lack of attachment. But that's only because the attachments are meaningful. I'm missing something and you can give it to me. Your kindness, your humor, your personality, your wisdom, your beauty, your depth, your chesed, your personality, your character, your help, whatever it is, every type of relationship according to its nature and capacity, your money, your business, your acumen, your acuteness, your sharpness. But, and then it goes both levels. You're my friend and I'm your friend. You're my spouse and I'm your spouse. And we define ourselves by each other. That's a big thing. To Hashem to say, Moshe says, don't take this for granted. God says, from today, I define myself as your God. That's who I am. Really, that's who I am. I define myself as your God. We take these words, Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Why not Ani Hashem Elokeichem? It's not an uptight in you, it's an uptight in him. What did it take for Hashem to say Ani Hashem Elokeichem? Really? The ganze Welt is a Shmek Tabak. Again, the whole universe is the mamish. It's like you'll pick up a speck of dust and you'll say, Hayoim v'holam. My definition is, I am the Lord over this speck of dust. This is what you are. And again, my relationship with a little grain of sand is closer than my relationship with infinity. We're both creations. We're both made up of trillions and trillions of atoms at the end of the day. I atom ahead, I atom ahin, this one, that one. The ant and the human being are far, far more closer cousins, like the evolutionary psychologists like calling them our cousins. Our cousins. The chimps are our first cousins, and the ants are the sixth cousin once removed. But they're still cousins. They're all cousins. They love calling them cousins. Chas v'shalom, they shouldn't be seen as cousin. But we're cousins. So it's our seventh cousin. They say a Yid once came to the Noyam Elimelech, the Rebbe Reb Melech. He needed some help, some tzedakah. So he went to the Gabbai and he says, I need to go see the Rebbe now. So he says, Vasepes, he says, tell him that we're kroivim. We're relatives. So he tells the Noyam Elimelech, who this Jew is. Elimelech says, Vaite kroivim. You know, the eighth cousin, ninth removed, one of those. By Mincha, by Chazaras Hashatz, so the Noam Elimelech was the Shliach Tzibur. So he starts saying, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, with a lot of his slavas. So he gives a scream, Vaite kroivim. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are also far relatives. So after Mincha, so I'm following when he called them in. Vaite kroivim, they're also far, far distant relatives. Imagine that he says his whole definition is, V'hu yi l'chal elokim. That's what he says. In this pchina, in this space, that's where they connect. In this bris, that he raised the Jewish soul to be able to be part of his pnimius, to be a chelik elikam mimal. It's not anymore stam. You're part of creation. You're not anymore part of creation. Ki chelik Hashem amay means that the soul is a chelik kivayachal of Hashem, and therefore it senses the pnimius of Elokus, not just the chitzonis, the eish oichla, the bekatsha. You're connected to the bekatsha, and the other way around, he connected to you. That's where they become one. And he says, that's where they become one. After the parentheses, Mishpat Lelekei Yaakov. The pasuk in Tehillim, Kapitel Pei Aleph. We say it on Rosh Hashanah. Of course, we say it every Thursday. Tiku b'chodesh Shofar, b'kesel yom Chageinu. So the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, when do you blow Shofar Rosh Hashanah? B'kesel yom Chageinu. How do you know? The only holiday that is celebrated when the moon is eclipsed. B'kesel, from the word kisui. Ki. Why should you blow Shofar? Ki. Chayk li Yisrael. It's a law for Jews. Mishpat le'lekei Yaakov. It's a time of mishpat. So this is the source that Rosh Hashanah is Yom HaMishpat. But here he teaches, you know why you have to blow shofar? Ki. There's a reason. Because there's mishpat le'lekei Yaakov. What does it mean, mishpat le'lekei? Literally, you teach mishpat le'lekei Yaakov, justice that is administered by the God of Jacob. In other words, he does it. Here he teaches, no, the mishpat is about Elekei Yaakov. Literally, mishpat le'lekei Yaakov. Sheyesh mishpat le'mayla, mi yiske liyas b'madrega zu liyas gili alakusi alav, sheyesh gasha nafshi b'kesher ametz v'chazak b'sham. The great mishpat of Rosh Hashanah is not only a mishpat on the details of a person's life. It starts off much deeper. Mishpat le'lekei Yaakov means who will be able to experience this gili alakus. Will you be able to connect this knot? Will you be able to experience this relationship that there is? The relationship is there. It's a bris. But just like a marriage, you can make a bris, and nonetheless, on the surface, it could be in the air. It could be very difficult. It could be challenging. There's something there at the core level, but it needs a lot of work. So he says, Mishpat le'lekei Yaakov. It's a mishpat concerning Elekei Yaakov. How much Yaakov can experience his God. How much there could be a Gili Elikus, there could be a relationship. In simple words, if Yiddishkeit is real, it's going to be real, or it's going to be Stam, Mitzvahs Anashim Alamada, technocrats doing the same thing every day. Good marriages, you take out the garbage, you buy challah for Shabbos, you buy wine for Shabbos, you do things. We're talking about civil people, but there's no experience, there's no energy, there's no electricity. So Judaism can be the same thing. There's a psabris, but it's, you follow shai. There's going to be a psagili alakus, there's going to be a kesher amitz. L'chein tzarich la'oirezeh b'Rosh Hashanah tchilas masach. Rosh Hashanah, which is tchilas masach, now goes back, everything here goes back. He started to say that Rosh Hashanah is Tchilas Masach. What's Tchilas Masach? In the beginning, it was all from him, but then he created Adam, Zayim, Zikaron L'Yom Rishon. Now it's not anymore like Yom Rishon, it's Zikaron L'Yom Rishon. There has to be L'Oirer is Galus Malkeinu through Zichron Abriz Vaiskashras. That happens through the Shofar. The Shofar is the tool to arouse this level of the relationship. So he says, L'chein tzarech lev azu b'chines vayihi b'shurun melech. One of the psukim of Malchus, the Gemara brings in Rosh Hashanah Lamed Beis is, from Bezos HaBrach, only 3 times you have Malchus in the whole Chumash. Shem Yimloich, Le'elam Vad, Shem Elakav Ima, Yisruas Melech Boy, and Vayihi b'shurun melech. Only 3 times Malchus in the whole Chumash of Chumash Torah. The last parsha, Vayihi b'shurun melech. Among the Yeshurun, Jews are called Yeshurun, which means straight ones. He becomes a melech. Okay, so he says in parentheses, Yeshurun is Miloshin Shir. Shemebchines Igulim, Shenumshach Bchines Soivev Kalam, and Vev Shadainu Bchines Anashamas Kmeshalo Machshava. Yeshurun is a shir. A shir means a song. It also means a circle. A shir is like a kala, which is a circle. It's the Bchina of Igulim, a song you sing again and again and again and again. This is the Bchina of Soivev. Okay, so all of Machshava. So he says, V'zeu imru lefanai malchis shetamlichuni alech. That's Pshat Rosh Hashanah. Hashem says, say before me malchis to make me a king over you. Shetuchlu la'amlichoi mipnimius malchusi yisbarach. It's not just what to do, it's that you could do it. God says, you could make me a king. You could make him a melech from pnimius. What's that, make him a melech? Make him a melech means he starts over the whole process. The whole creation is a concept of malchus. To become a melech means you have to initiate the process. To initiate the process, you got to go back to the beginning. In other words, Rosh Hashanah, you can't go to Gvuraisov. You have to go to Bekotshai. Tamlichuni Aleichem means, let's start over again. I'm becoming a king over you. Why should I want to become a king over you? Was felt this meis? You don't add anything to me. There's no connection here. Why should the infinite become finite again? In middle of the year, it's already a system. But Rosh Hashanah, everything goes back to the beginning. So that means the one who makes Hashem a melech has to be able to go into the place of the melech that's deeper than being a melech. If somebody lives in isolation, aloof, sublime, and you want to bring him out, You have to be able to connect to him the way he is in isolation, because he's not brought out yet. So who could bring out Malchus? Only somebody who can go into the Pnimiyus. Shetamlichuni Aleichem means you could make me a melech. Why could you make me a melech? Because you affect the Bekotshai. You affect the deepest relationship, so you could bring me out. But this could never happen through words. This is also Zechroinus. What do you have to remember? You remember he said before, you only remember things. You don't remember that which was in front of your eyes. You remember things that are distant. Ata Zoiche My Soilem is a Chiddush. Ata Zoich, of course he could remember. It's not a Chiddush that God has a memory. The Chiddush is that he remembers. In other words, it matters. It's meaningful. It's significant. You remember. Once I grew up, there was a Yid who would come with Rosh Hashanah. So he was a sharp Jew. He was already an Olam Amis. He'd come from France. So he was very sharp. An Alta Yid. So I once went over to him to say Shalom Aleichem. So he said, oh, Shalom Aleichem, and he says my name. I was a kid. I say, ich gedenkt mir? He says, Narishkeiten vergessen man keinmal nicht. I said, you remember me? He says, stupidity you never forget. Important things you forget. Narishkeiten vergessen man nicht. Okay, so that was his way of giving me a Shalom Aleichem, but putting me in my place. But the truth is, Narishkeiten darf man vergessen, yeah? Ata Zoiche, you really remember Maisei Olam? It's like you remember the ant moved right, the ant moved left. Ad kedei kach. So that's after the Malchus. He says Zechroinus is Yale Zechroinechem lefonav letoive sheyiske v'yoyre b'chinas habris v'hakesher sheyistol olav machshava v'gam ki ata rochak mimenu ba'avinenu v'avinesechem avdom. Even though the person he has sinned, so therefore the distance, there's no tamlichuni. So you could say the bris is over. That's the chiddush of a bris. The bris is not rational. So even if there's every reason that the friendship should dissolve, he still maintains it. So it's Rosh Hashanah. The Jew says, I'm unworthy, there's no bris. No, Zechroinus means you still remember, because there's a bris. But you need the arousal from below to create the arousal from above. Ubameh asks the Gemara, b'shofar. How do you do Malchus and Zechroinus all shofar? The Hainu, Aidei Pnimiyus Halev. The shofar means you have to go into your own Pnimiyus Halev. As long as you go into your Chitzonius Halev, you're not going to get to the Pnimiyus. Rosh Hashanah, you go into your own Pnimiyus Halev. You go into the core of your own heart that's beyond Tam V'das. La'oirir me'um kedaliba. From the depth of the heart to be murdered. L'scharit ba'kiras haratzin minekuda amitis shabalev. The regret that comes from the absence of the relationship comes from the deep depth of the heart. Chuli va'aza yizgala chuli, and then the pnimius comes out. You have takashatam l'chuni alecha. K'nis kelel, as we said before. Okay, we're holding Perek Vav, right? Page 89, Parshas Nitzavim, Daf Mem Hey, Amud Aleph, Mem Hey, column 1. We're up to Perek Vav. So Perek Hey came to a summation of the concept on Rosh Hashanah of Malchius and Zechroinus and Shofar, which are the three major features that the Chazal inserted into Rosh Hashanah based on how they learned the Psukim and Parshas Emer. There's a Sugi Masech Rosh Hashanah about this that we also learned a few days ago, Lamed Beis, about the three concepts of Malchius, Zechroinus, and Shofar. Al Pi Pshat, the three concepts. The Sefer Ikrim, Rabbi Yosef Olbo says, Al Pi Pshat, the three concepts are Malchius represents that God created the world. Zechroinus means that God cares about the world. The concept of the concept of Hashgacha, and Shofar is the concept of Matan Torah. There's the Metzius of Hashem, that's Malchius. Zechroinus is there's Hashgacha, there's divine providence, and Shofar represents Matan Torah, which was with a Shofar, which is Torah min Hashamayim. And each one is a different feature, but it represents the foundation of Yiddishkeit. That there's a creator, God exists. Number two, There's providence, there's hashgacha. He knows what's happening, he cares about what's happening. That's the kind of the schar, there's einish, there's accountability, there's a relationship between the creator and the creation. That's zechroinus, ata zoicher. And shofar says that he communicated to humanity and to the Jewish people a blueprint how to live. You could believe in God, you could believe that there's divine providence, but Torah is not min hashamayim. So that's the three concepts of Malchus, Zechronis, and Shofar articulated on Rosh Hashanah. The truth is, if you daven the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, I think I mentioned this, it's Kedai, those who don't understand, those who don't have a good mastery of the Hebrew tongue of Lashon Kodesh, it's Kedai to take a Machzeh in English and understand the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. Because the introduction that we give to the Psukim of Malchus, the introduction we give to the Psukim of Zechronis, and the introduction that we give to the Psukim of Shofris really encapsulates the foundational beliefs and axioms of Jewish existence and Jewish consciousness. It's the challenge of people who grew up with it that they often don't take note of what anything means. The Siddur, by definition, is a closed book. It's just a book meant to read words and not to understand or experience. But the truth is, especially every davening, but especially the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, those introductions that the Chazal put into Malchi, Zechronis, and Shofris, it gives a very powerful presentation, intellectually and emotionally and experientially, to Jewish consciousness. The words that are chosen, if you understand it in Lashon Kodesh, is gewaldig, and if not, you could take a look in English and either read it in English or at least review it in English. No, the Psukim is the next stage. Before the Psukim, they give an introduction. Before the Psukim. Ata niglesa ba'anan kvoidecha, min hashamayim ishmatam koilecha. Ata zoiche ma'israelim ufoiket kol yitzurei kedem lefanecha niglu kol talumas, etc. Before you get to the Psukim, there's a whole big paragraph and introduction for Zechronis and Shofros. Ata zoiche is how Zechronis begins. So that's what the Sefer Ikrim says, al pi pshat, existence of Hashem, hashgacha, and Torah min hashamayim. Three major features of Judaism. Remember, the Ikrim didn't hold like the Rambam that there were 13 principles of faith. He argued with the Rambam. He held there was no need for 13 principles. You just had a few principles and that was it. Malchi, Zechronis, and Shofar already encapsulates everything else. The Rambam fleshes out the principles into 13 pieces, the 13 animamins, the Yud Gimel Ikr. Here in this Maimah, the Baal HaTanya takes it one step further, exploring it al pi pnimius, al derech hanister. And here, the idea is, Imru Lefane Malchus b'Rosh Hashanah shetamlichuni aleichem, is that on Rosh Hashanah, the Jew, Kivayachal, creates the Malchus of Hashem, shetamlichuni aleichem. The first Rosh Hashanah, it happened from above, Isarusa de La'ela, but every Rosh Hashanah since, Zikaron L'Yom Rishon, it happens from below, Isarusa de L'Sata. Zechroinus follows Malchus, and the summation is Shofros. And what was the Nekuda? The Nekuda was that L'cha'oida Mitzad Hashem, he's not shaykh to be a melech on us, because ein melech b'lo yam, there's no king without a people. But the people have to be on a frequency, on the same frequency like the king. That you could even say that he is a king over them. You're not going to say a person is a king over a rock, or over a speck of dust, or over a drop of rain, or over a fleck of snow. The two are not be'erech to say you're a melech, even though you rule it. You could do whatever you want with it. But the name malchus, the name royalty, the name kingship, the name leadership doesn't apply here because they're completely not on the same frequency. Even more than that is the distance between creator and creation. So the whole concept of shatam lichuni aleichem is a chiddush. It's a revolutionary chiddush. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, when he speaks of Rosh Hashanah, al pi pnimius, Atem Nitzavim hayoim, which according to many Mefarshim is a remez for Rosh Hashanah, even though it's not a pshat. He talks about right away, Atem Nitzavim hayoim kulchem. It's the day that all the neshamas come back to the Ein Sof, and therefore there's complete achdus, and la'avrecha bebris Hashem alakecha. Leman hakim oischa loy la'am v'hu yih l'chal le'elokim on both levels. The krisis bris, which is l'mayla mitam v'das, the bris, the covenant, which is beyond rationality, created a relationship between the Jew and the pnimius of Ein Sof, what we call chelek Hashem amoy or Yisrael olam ha'machshav. And because of that, there is a deep, deep connection to the point that Hashem could say, Shetamlichuni aleichem, make me your melech, to be ma'orer, to evoke kevayachal in his pnimius, the concept of malchus. V'yalu zichroinchem lefonai l'toiva, to create, to generate the gilui of this zikaron ata zoichem ma'aseh olam from the pnimius of Ein Sof. And the method is always through the shofar. The shofar is the tzayka, the outcry that comes from the pnimius halev, from the core of the heart that transcends tam v'das. It comes from the pnimius of the person, from that place which is l'cham alibi, bakshu fanoi, which reaches into espanecha Hashem avakish. And now he continues. This is the meaning of another pasuk for shakal bepelas harim agvoyes b'meznayim. This is the haftarah of Shabbos Nachamu. Yeshaya Hanavi, Isaiah chapter 40, Yeshaya Perek Mem. Yeshaya says, Mi modad b'shaloi moyim. Who can measure with their gate water, and with their pinky the heavens? And he says, V'shakal bepelas harim, describing Hashem, he weighs mountains on a scale. Pelas is a scale. Ugvoyes and hills b'maznayim, on a smaller scale, on a balance. V'shakal b'pelas harim, and he weighed mountains with a scale, which obviously represents the grandeur of the creator of the mountains. And hills, gvoyes, are smaller mountains, but maznayim in a balance. It says, Kihine harim ugvoyes and beis b'chinas madreges ha'ava. Mountains and hills represents two forms of ava, of affection. A mountain is elevated earth. A hill is also elevated earth. Symbolically, when a person loves, their heart swells. Their heart becomes larger, it becomes mountainous. It protrudes in the sense that it gravitates towards somebody. The introvert, gvura, is contraction. Ava, chesed, is expansion, expansiveness. So the mountain, which is basically the earth, elevated, inspired, represents the ahava, where the human heart expands, it grows, it swells, and it protrudes with an affection towards somebody, and it picks up the person, it inspires the person. But there are hills and there are mountains, harim and gvoyas. Ki beis b'chinas haim, harim and gvoyas. Gvoyas hem b'madregas and lamatim b'chinas harim. Both physically and spiritually, gvoyas are lower than harim. Gvoyas are usually translated as hills or mounds, and harim are translated as mountains. You're not going to call Mount Everest a giva, or the Himalayas a giva. You'll call it a har, a mountain, yes. Even lower than him, even mountains lower than the Himalayas and Mount Everest are called mountains. But a giva is a lower mountain, a lower hill. In Zohar it says, Rashi says, Meirosh tsurim erenu umigvoyes asherenu. So Chazal say, Rashi brings, gvoyes are the imohis, imon shemekablim me'aharim, who receive from the harim. V'hu, what's the difference when it comes to love? B'chinas ava b'chitzonius halev. Giva is also love. The heart swells with love. But it's back to the love that we associate with the externalities of the heart. Hanilkach mitam v'das, which is taken, which is derived, which is born from reasoning, from rationale, from perception. V'izboinenus b'gdulas Hashem, from meditating, from contemplating the infinity of God, kiravu, because He's great. Kiravu. In other words, there's a lot to be mizboinen, and when one has the proper hisboinenus, the emotions, the heart swells up with a love that we call a hill-like love, a giva. So there's passion, there's emotion, there's inspiration. The heart swells, it grows, it expands, Ava generally expands. It's a form of expansiveness. But what is this? This is the Giva, which is the Ava B'chitzonius Halev, that comes from Tam V'das. It comes from awareness, from understanding. As explained before, the more there's the awareness of the divine in everything, V'ata Mechayes Kulam, one's emotions gravitate to the truth of every being, including the truth of I, which is the Va'ata, which is Mechayes Kulam. And since every single Nivra is really an expression of divine light, Va'ata Mechayes Kulam, the Ziv, the ray of the divine, as explained, and that's where our Hasaga can reach. Every Nivra Lefi Erkoi, the way we define Hashem, that is called the Chitzonius Halev, the God that we define within our terms and our experiences, which is measured according to our capacity, and that's why we call it an external heart. Again, it's not so external, it's pretty deep, but what calls it external is because it reaches into the Chitzonius of Elikos, and therefore it reaches into the Chitzonius Halev. The Chitzonius Halev accesses the Chitzonius of Elikos. What do we mean by the Chitzonius of Elikos? The way Elikos is measured and custom-made and enclosed within the characteristics of every creature infinitely and with all of its diversity, and that is Bainanus and Gdulus Hashem Kiravu creates this Ava, which is called the Giva, the hill. Every love has a prerequisite. You have to refine your soul. You have to be able to feel love. If a person's heart is plugged, for example, when you're angry, when you're full of anger, you can't experience love. When you're very frustrated or annoyed, it doesn't mean it's not there. You can't feel it, you can't experience. More deeper loves, the more the soul is refined, the more Ava you could feel. People who are very, very refined are filled with love. People who are less refined can't experience. It's harder for them. So he says, to refine a soul, that it should be able to be illuminated with the light, with the lichtigkeit of this Ava. One needs to draw down on himself, on his soul, the light of Torah and mitzvahs. The Zohar says that the 248 positive commandments are the 248 organs of the king. What does it mean, 248 organs of the king? The limbs of the king. Kevayachal, just like a body has many limbs, and each limb accesses and draws forth and gives you access to the human personality, to the human soul, the arm and the eyes and the nose and the mouth, each limb according to its capacity. Each mitzvah is basically a channel for divine energy. It's like a limb of the king. The Ramach Evrim represents Evarim HaChitzonim, the outer organs. Torah represents the Evarim HaPnimim, the internal organs. This explains why Chazal say the Mishnah and Peah that we say in the morning, the Sechta Peah. The Salmud Torah connected Kulam, the learning of Torah, trumps them all. The outer organs are crucial to life, but the life of the soul depends even more on the internal organs, and therefore halachically in Hilchas Treifa we have the concept of nikevasan. If they're perforated, but mashu, even a tiny perforation, endangers the life, could create terminal illness or absolute death. Where the outer organs, certainly a hole or a perforation is not the way to go, but it won't endanger necessarily the life. So therefore, Torah and mitzvahs represents Evarim the Malk. One represents Evarim HaChitzonim. Torah represents Evarim HaPnimim, the inner chiyus of the Evarim HaPnimim, the inner organs. You have like the lungs, etc., as it brought in Hilchas Treifas, the lungs and similar Evarim HaPnimim, where they're so sensitive, even a small hole could chalila spell catastrophe and disaster. So he says, "V'heim heim k'moshel kaf moiznayim." They are like the scale, kaf moiznayim sheshoiklen b'chavzu. You weigh with this side of the scale. What is it called? The kaf, the
pan.
Huh?
The pan of
the pan of the scale. V'noistim. The cup is also fine, yeah, kaf, cup. And then you create a burden, you put a pekel, a masa, something heavy on the other side of the scale, lahachriya, to be able to balance it out. So he says, Kachai de masa Torah v'hamitzvahs machriya kafa ava l'hoyer al nafsha. Torah and mitzvahs could look like a burden sometimes. It's called a masa. Masa means a burden. When you put the burden on one side of the scale, what happens? The other side lifts up. So he says, through the burden of Torah and mitzvahs, machriya kafa ava, it creates the kafa ava, the other side of love, l'hoyer al nafsha, to illuminate your soul. Sometimes a burden, which you think schleps you down, really is schlepping you up, is pulling you up. So for the person to be able to experience this type of ahava that comes from tam v'das, which is chitzonius alev, they need the giva, v'shakal b'peres harim ugvoyes b'moiznayim. What's the moiznayim? This ahava, you need a refined soul. The refined soul to be able to be sensitive to the divine. Torah and mitzvah sensitizes the soul to the divine, so therefore they can experience this type of ava that comes from va'ata mechaya eskula. But if a person doesn't have this masa of Torah and mitzvahs, so then that kaf, that other side of the scale, could never lift up. Dafka through the burden of Torah and mitzvahs, l'chayda it's a burden, but really what it does is, it elevates the soul like a hill to be able to experience this type of ava.
This is for Ava Chitzonis?
This is for Ava
So
Chitzonis.
you just said that Torah is Ava Pnimis, unless he means Torah Mitzvahs, he means
A
Shiras.
vorim hapnimim. A vorim hapnimim. He's not referring here to Negei Chitzonis Pnimi Yisalev. In that, when we say mitzvahs are amache vorim de malka, he says that's all mitzvahs. In a vorim itself, you have two types of a vorim. You have the inner organs of the body, what we call the vital organs, and then you have the outer organs of the body, which are also very, very critical. But that's the difference of Torah and mitzvahs. Every mitzvah channels divine energy, like every Aver channels divine energy. But Torah is the inner chiyus, the v'talma Torah keneged kula. Just like sometimes a person, without outer organs, they could live. Without the inner organs, their life is over. So what do we see from here? The way we have to understand what the masa of Torah and mitzvahs is. Essentially, it's like a scale. There's a burden I put on you that just crushes you. It keeps you down. And then there's a burden that you carry that lifts you up. The Gemara says in Saita about the Aron. Ha'aron noisei es noisav. The ark would carry its carriers. You thought you were carrying it. In other words, you're doing the Aron a favor. But really, you were carried by carrying it. By carrying this masa, you become transported. There are certain burdens in life that if you carry them, you become burdened. And there are certain burdens in life that if you carry them, you become light. They carry you. You think you're carrying them, but really in turn, they carry you because they transport you to a place where without them, you would have never be able to reach. When you look at Torah and mitzvahs l'cha'ira, it's full of limitations, it's full of laws. What does that have to do with love? You're telling me you can't experience the love of creation without Torah and mitzvahs? L'cha'ira, Torah and mitzvahs is detailed. It's very detailed oriented. But that's the chiddush. Ugvoyes b'moiznayim. When you want to have the hills, which hills? The av of chitzonius alev, you need the moiznayim to be able to be mezachich es hanefesh. To give an example for this, an example we once heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he spoke about laser technology. When laser technology came out, laser technology is very interesting. You can today do surgeries without making a physical incision. The laser power, the laser beams penetrate the body and can manipulate and heal situations without the knife, without the cut. Stones, rocks, the laser technology is fabulous. So he spoke then, the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Ein lecha ben chayrin ala mi she'osek b'talmud Torah. The Mishnah says, who is free? Somebody who learns. Ostensibly, it doesn't seem that way. It's on the contrary. What do we call a freie Yid? Frei means a free Jew. Is a freie Yid, yeah, because he's free. Ein lecha ben chayrin ala mi she'osek b'talmud Torah. Many people often look at Yiddishkeit as the ultimate burden. It's not frei, verkehrt. Everything, Shulchan Aruch has what to say to you. Somebody once told me, I can't even decide which nails I cut first. I won't even tie my shoelaces. You even get involved with that. Even in the bathroom, the Shulchan Aruch has what to say. Do this, you do it this way, megalat, all the halachas. So everywhere it has what to say. So that's called free. That's called l'cha'ira, a tremendous burden. So the Rebbe said then that in laser technology you see something very interesting. How does laser technology work? Every object emits light. So every single object has tremendous light that comes from the object. However, every object, the light gets squandered in all directions. The light goes here, the light goes there. And because of that, the power of the light is compromised because it's all over the place. What does laser technology do? It harnesses all the light and focuses it in one direction, unleashing its full momentum and power, not allowing the light to be squandered in all directions. When you compel, when you focus, when you channel, when you harness light in one direction, all of its internal strength and power can emerge. And when you have that power, you could perform surgeries with that light. Where without that technology, the light just goes all over the place. So on one level, the laser technology limits. It creates a tremendous limit. It doesn't allow the light to go here, the light to go there. On the other hand, by doing that, what does it do? It unleashes the true koyach, the true utzma, the true intensity and prowess that exists in the light, which would not be there if the light would go in all places. When you look at a human life is filled with light. But human life is also chaotic. People who don't live disciplined lives, right? They have a lot of light. You have this a lot of times with artists, tremendous creativity and but it's all over the place. I sleep when I want, I eat what I want, I do what I want. So what happens? There's a lot of light in you, but it's squandered, it's pure chaos. What Torah mitzvahs tries to do is not crush the person's light. Limit the various aspects of a human being, that the full infinite strength and power of the human soul can emerge, and then you can take over the world. Then your light becomes infinite. So it's not there to limit. The limit is there in order to produce infinity, in order to unleash the true power that we know exists even in a little tiny atom. If you just know how to access the power, you can change the world. That's what we see here. On one level, you have the masa of Torah mitzvahs, which you put on the scale. What happens? The other side gets uplifted. What does it mean you get uplifted? Through this burden, it's not a burden to keep you down, it's a burden to bring you up. Of course, for a person to appreciate this, you have to have the right hashkafa of what Torah mitzvahs is. You have to understand what it is. If you don't understand what it is, it could just look like one burden, another burden, endless burdens that don't stop. If one understands what it is, one sees that essentially it's a blueprint. Torah is the spiritual laser technology of the world, trying to bring out the deepest light in every human being, in every Jew, and in the world. And how do you bring out their deepest light, their deepest koyach? For this, there's Shasam Mitzvahs Loisasa, there's Ramach Mitzvahs, etc. That's the Kaf Moiznayim, the Shakal Bepela Sarim Agvois B'Miznayim. Avol B'chinis Umadregis Harim. There was an Indian poet who once said that, he said a beautiful line. If you want a violin or a harp or a guitar to produce its beautiful melodies, there's one condition. The condition is that the strings have to be tied down. If somebody cuts all the chords of the violin so that everything is loose and free and no inhibitions, it's wonderful. The violin indeed is free, but music will not come out. No music will come out. It's from tying down the chords that the music comes out. Now, unfortunately, if all the violin knows is that it has to tie down its chords, nobody teaches it about its music. So that's the tragedy of religion often. That the whole definition of religion is metarnish, 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 metarnish. This chord tied down, this, everything is no. You don't even know that it's all there in order to create the music, in order to produce the music. But the point is, you need the chords tied down to produce the music. That's the scale, the mashal what the scale represents. Then you have mountains, not hills. These are the tall mountains. Now you're getting ready to Mount Everest. This is the love that doesn't come from Tam and Das. This is the love, what we spoke about, Bakshu Ponoi, the Penimius Halev, the love that is beyond Tam, beyond reason. The love of reason is a love that's logical. I process you through my mind, and based on that, I develop an emotion. As we spoke, many relationships. I hear what you're saying based on what I understand, and that's the you that I grasp. It's basically one that is processed through my filters. The Ava Shalamayla Mitam B'das, Shalamayla Mibchinas Torah Mitzvahs. This Ava is even deeper than Torah Mitzvahs. The Zohar says, Oiraisa Torah comes from Chachma. This Ava is Lamayla Min Atam B'das. It's beyond Chachma. So here you have the relationship Kivayachal. Even Torah mitzvahs, we say they're the organs of the king. They're the Torah is the Chachma of Hashem. The Chachma of Hashem already is some form of articulation of the Ein Sof, even though he's dealing with Chachma of Ein Sof. The Pnimiyus Alev, the Ava of Pnimiyus Alev, is rooted in the Chelek Hashem Amma, in the Krisis Bris. In the Krisis Bris. Hine anoichi koides bris neged kol amcha esen neflois avos chali, which is beyond any tam, which is beyond any das. It's the intimate core of the Jewish soul, which is a violin, so to speak, that senses the music of the core of the divine, which is beyond how he processes it within tam v'das. And thus, v'i efshe la'agia le'ed Torah mitzvahs. Only. In the first Chitzonius Alev Ava, we said the prerequisite is Torah mitzvahs. This type of Pnimiyus Alev, one can't reach only through Torah mitzvahs. Here you need the Shofar. What's the Shofar? The Shofar is the tshuva that comes from the depth of the heart, shalamayla min adas, which is beyond the human being's das, machmas richuke me'or panav yisbarach. And what actually brings out the Pnimiyus Halev is the distance. When the person experiences the distance that he has from the Pnimiyus, like we learned, Halalukel B'Kotshoi, B'Rikiyo Uzloi, B'Gvuroisav, Kiroiv Gudloi, then there's the B'Seika Shofar, the Shofar that wants to reach back into the truth, to the core. Sha'oz Me'Rachik Dafka Hashem Nirali Kana. Quotes a pasuk from Yirmiyah, quoted it earlier. From the distance, Hashem will be visible to me. So the diuk here is dafke from the richok. It's the sense of distance that creates the deep yearning from the oimek halev, that I want to connect to you, and I want to connect to you not in a rational way. I want to connect from the deepest me to the deepest you. V'zeu inyan pelas. And that's why here the word that's used is v'shakal ba'pelas harim. He weighs the mountains, not the hills. The hills was Miznayim, that we learned about. Now we go to the Harim. Pirush, Shehu HaMishkol, this is also the scale, Shal Eitz Aruch, of a long eitz, a long piece of wood. Uritzuyas Tluyan Beroishay. Straps are suspended on the top. Shekoyden in Yiddish it's called Bezemin. Shesham over there, Shoiklinas hadavar hanitin boy, where you weigh that object which is placed in the scale, va'arichis v'koived ha'etz u'merchako hu ha'machriya, and the length and the pressure of this beam, of this piece of wood, and its distance is what is machriya, is what creates the scale. That's what creates the pressure. What is this in the nimshal? Anybody knows what this is? Huh?
The effect it has on you is dafka further.
No, I'm saying the mashal. What is he describing? Pashat, the type
right,
of.
Yeah, that if you have a scale, if the length of the thing on top of the balance is short, there's not a lot of pull of gravity. But if you have a very long horizontal pole, then it's and you put a weight on it, it really pull. A longer seesaw is harder, than the
It's a longer seesaw. But I'm wondering, what's the Ritzuyas Tluyim B'Roisha Shekoyden Bezemin? A bezim in Yiddish is a broom. But what is he talking about? The Ritzuyas Tluyim B'Roisha.
A scale that hangs from a hook with strings and a bow. Is that what it's described? They would measure
The longer the tree, like the longer the seesaw, right? The more powerful the scale is. It really goes down. The shorter it is.
Is it more accurate because it has a longer Ritsuya?
No, it has a much longer Ritzua.
I'm saying, is it more accurate because of that?
Probably.
Finer?
So he says, arichus, the length, the koived ha'etz, and the pressure of the tree, umerchaka, and its distance, hu amachre, that's what creates the hakra. That's a pellis. A miznayim is a small scale, which the Mefarshim say. And a pellis is a huge scale.
Palace is this, really. That's what I think. Regular scale would be the same. Palace would be like this. So the longer this is, the more it weighs down.
And
It's the leverage that weighs down.
we're under it too.
That's what it seems like.
And you build it one up?
I guess it hangs from the Ritzuas. That's what it sounds like. Okay. He's describing here a ganze mais. In the Mefarshim it says, the Parshas, in the Mefarshim and Vayishaya, that Harim are huge, so that's why he uses the word palace. And Gvoyas are much smaller, they're hills, not mountains, so he uses the words Maznai. So he says, what's the nim? Shalkach, Alidei HaMerirah. So here it's about the distance. The fact that the eitz is so long from one side to the other side, so it really, really goes down very low, and it really goes up very, very high. So it says, Kachai de HaMerirah shebenavshan, the frustration in the soul. Al Richukei me'eis Hashem asher rachik mimenu b'tachlis, on the distance, the profound distance from Hashem, by uprooting the will from what he was etched in lechatchila, he was really connected to something. By uprooting that, the distance, the richuk, the shofar, the tshuva me'umkad liba, creates on the other side the tremendous love that is infinite beyond tam v'das. It's like the two extremes. In many ways, it's the sense of the lowness, the richuk, the sense of regret, the tshuva me'umka deliba. That is what triggers and brings out a much deeper pnimius, which brings out kavayachal and Hashem, that what you experience is the love from the pnimius halev, the krisis bris, the David and Yonason love, the nefleisa avas chali me'avas nashim. And that only comes dafka through the shofar. It's beyond oisius. That's an ava that's beyond oisius, beyond dibur. It's beyond tam v'das. There's no chitzonius halev there. That's the pchin of bakshu fonai. That's what happens with the shofar. That's the power of the shofar. So l'chayre, the person thinks he's so distant, he's so far. It's that distance you see in those huge scales. The seesaw goes really, really down, all the way down. Whoop! The other one flies up. The other one flies up all the way, not to Gvoyas, but to the B'china of Harim. V'shakal Bapelas Harim versus the Gvoyas B'miznayim. The Gvoyas B'miznayim is the Ava of Chitzonius Alev called Gvoyas, which you also have a scale. That's Torah Mitzvahs, the burden of Torah Mitzvahs, which refines the love to experience the divine in creation. It's the Pelas, the Tshuva Meyumka, the Libba, the Yerida, the sense of Meirachek Hashem Nirali, the Akiras Haratzain, the uprooting the will from an addiction that makes him feel so distant, that allows for the Pnimius Halev to emerge. Min hameitza karasa yutke, anani b'merchav yutke. What is this in a person's life? One example of this would be that sometimes we see here a fascinating idea, that it's the richuk, it's the sense of distance, it's the meridus shebenafsha. It's, to use the seesaw example or the scale example, it's the fact that he goes all the way down and he feels completely distanced from the source, and his rotzon gets uprooted from what it was etched in lechatchila. That sense of remorse or regret or humility is so powerful that it touches the depth of the person's heart, that he can't explain or access rationally, and therefore it touches and triggers in Hashem also the Ava Rabel Yoiner Shalamaylam and Atam V'das. There are those elements in people's lives that work. They function, they operate well. Things are organized, structured. You got it figured out. You got your relationships figured out. You got your life figured out. You got your marriage figured out. I don't know anybody here, but things are figured out more or less. You got your career figured out. Things are with Tam V'das. You even got God figured out on some level. At least in your imagination, at least on some level. And we're talking here even of the great spiritual, sensitive soul who appreciates the Va'atem Nitzavim. What the Shofar represents is the outcry that comes the fact that the person got nothing figured out. What they feel is pain. What they feel is that they're unsettled. What they feel is that they're not comfortable. They feel distant. And what happens is their will may have been focused on something for a long time, and they uproot their will from that because they're just annoyed with it. They're disgusted with it. And in that sense, where l'cha'oira, there's no tam v'das, where l'cha'oira they don't have it figured out, what that triggers is within them a hergish, a feeling that comes from the pnimius, from kedeliba, and therefore it affects the relationship with Hashem also on that level, which is the avel yoina beyond tam v'das. Ad kedei kach. And this is dafke from the richuk. That's the Kol HaShofar. V'zeu harim hagvoyim laye'elim. We say in Barchi Nafshi in Tehillim Kuf Dalet, the great mountains that Hashem created laye'elim, for the wild goats. You ever went on tall mountains and you see the wild goats jumping off cliffs? So David HaMelech marvels, harim hagvoyim laye'elim, sloyim machsel hashvanim. The rocks are a refuge for the shvanim, for the rabbits. But harim hagvoyim, the steep mountains, laye'elim, for the wild goats. So he teaches here at Taich Pirush, Pchinis harim hagvoyim. How do you access the tall mountains? Nimshach al lamata yidei ye'elim. Shul pchinis Kol HaShofar, ki shofar shedesh Hashanah shel yoel pashut, shul pchinis tshuva me'emek halev kama. The Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, the Mishnah says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, the shofar we use for Rosh Hashanah is shel yoel pashut, from a wild goat and a straight shofar, not curved. That's the shit of Rabbi Yehuda. The halach is taken out like Rabbi Yehuda. I mean, b'diavad, according to most poskim, it's fine. The halach is we use shel ayil kofuf. We use from a ram's horn. That's kofuf, that's curved. But Rabbi Yehuda holds shofar shel Rosh Hashanah shel yoel pashut. So the Baal HaTanya says harim hagvoyim layelim. You want to access harim hagvoyim. What's harim hagvoyim? Harim hagvoyim is the ava l'mayla mitam v'das. How do you access that ava? It's through Ye'elim. Ye'elim is the Kol HaShofar. The shofar is the yoel pashut, which is the pchinas tshuva me'oimek halef. V'loshin yoel u'loshin aliyah. The word yoel is associated with aliyah shemayla sodem l'pchinas madregas ava shalamayla min hadas. It elevates the person to a love that is beyond rationality. Upashut. Rabbi Yehuda says it has to be straight, not curved. So the Gemara says the chol mad pashut libei tvei. The Gemara says, what are the two shittas if the shofar should be straight or the shofar should be curved? One shitta holds, the more kfifus halev, the more you bend the heart, better. Rabbi Yehuda holds, kol ma de poshet libei tvei yadav. The more the heart is straightened out is better. So he teaches, what's poshet? I know, lifshoit es ha'ava mis lapshusa beguf. Poshet means to
literally means to metastasize as an English word.
Metastasize. Lifshoit es ha'ava. To spread out. Hafshota. Straight. To spread out the ava from its enclosement in the body. Liyasoyek liboy bekirba. The ava shouldn't be limited. It shouldn't be bent. It shouldn't be confined. It should be poshet. It should be removed from any limitation. Diffused, yeah. Limser nafshel Hashem l'iskalul be'echad. To become completely submerged in the one. So shofar shel Rosh Hashanah is yoel. You want to go to the place of l'mayla mitam v'das. Okay, that's the baskel. To the etzem of the Ein Sof. How? Poshet. You want the ava pshuta. You don't want the complex ava that is convoluted and bent and carved and concocted and rationalized and explained and internalized within the confines of the person. Shetamlichuni aleichem is on Rosh Hashanah through the Shofar, the Jew triggers the deepest place kavayachal and atzmos that's beyond any realm. You go back to Bekotchoy, to the Keil Elyon, higher than Rakia, higher than Gvuroisov, higher than Keroiv Gudloi. That's the Ata Zoiche Maisa Olam, that ability that you remember Maisa Olam. It's so distant. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. I define myself in terms of you because you ultimately reach into that essence. That's the Yoel Poshet. Harim Hakvoyim comes out through Ye'elim, through the Shofar, which is Shofar Yoel Poshet. That's the shit of Rabbi Yehuda and Shofar. The Gvoyis, that's the Ava of Chitzonius Halev. But the Harim, Bapelis Harim, is through the Oimek Halev. And how does a person reach there? It's not Torah and Mitzvahs, it's Tshuva. The difference of Torah and Mitzvahs and Tshuva, Torah and Mitzvahs is a functional life. Tshuva comes from dysfunction. Tshuva comes from broke. Why do you do tshuva? You don't do tshuva when things... The concept of tshuva means that there's brokenness in life. There's things you don't figure out. Tshuva comes from confusion. Tshuva comes from bewilderment. Tshuva comes from crisis. Tshuva comes from problems, from challenges. From meridus. There's a frustration in life. Torah mitzvahs is the blueprint of God for humanity. But Hashem knows that life also has other elements in it. That's the koyach tshuva. So tshuva paradoxically reaches into that place because it's the frustration which challenges the person to say, you know what, I don't know anything. All I know is I feel pain, I feel disgusted, I feel frustrated. That's what I feel. I don't have it figured out. It's not in Tam V'das. That's the shofar, and therefore he doesn't have oisius. In real pain and frustration, there's no oasis.
Like the primal scream.
The primal scream, it's primal, it's very primal. And it takes over the body. I once read a very interesting research paper that was done by a whole association of therapists and psychologists. They asked, do you know on the first session of therapy, the person is going to make progress or he's just going to stay there and do nothing? So what was fascinating, one of the things they saw for many years is that if the person comes in the first time and he has everything figured out, then it's usually a hopeless situation. For every question he has an answer. He knows exactly what he's feeling, why he's feeling, how it happened, when it happened. And it's all figured out, it's a hopeless situation. If he comes and he looks at you, he doesn't know what hit him. Then actually there's a lot of hope. Why? This is the Nekuda. Because all healing comes from a place where one surrenders, where one gives up control, where one allows the deeper love that's L'mayla Mitam V'das to take over, to touch real reality. So when everything is working, you don't have to go there. Your system got it good. Torah mitzvahs. Tshuva means when it's not working. So paradoxically, that's what creates the oimek halev. There's still a connection. I don't know what it is, but there's a connection. That's the chelik Hashem Amoy that's still connected. And that's what the shofar represents. So I don't have words. I don't have explanations. I don't have words. I don't know. I can't explain anything. All I can do is scream. All I can do is scream.
What is tshuva from Ava?
This is tshuva. This tshuva brings out the ava. Tshuva is the ava. It's really one thing. Wie steht on what does it say on Mordechai? By the Megillah, yeah? Vayetze b'soicha hier, vayizak zo'oka g'doilo mora. At Geshrien, what was he screaming? Esther sent him clothes. Yeah, he was wearing a sack, so Esther sent him clothes. Vayizak zo'oka g'doilo mora. What was he screaming? What was the nature? There's nuschayis of tefillah. We daven by tanesim, anenu. There's going to slichas, there's all the anenus. What was Mordechai screaming? Once heard a word from Rabbi Yitzchak Kutner. He said like this, the Gemara says in Yuma that the Anshe Knesses HaGdoila did away with the nusach of tefillah. Moshe Rabbeinu says in Parshas V'Schanan Ekev, Hakel, HaGodol, HaGibber, V'HaNoira. Daniel and Yirmiyah deleted it. No Gibber, no Noira. Why? They saw the Churban and they felt they didn't see Hashem as a gibber or as a noida, not strong and not awesome. Nachrim Mekarkerin Behecholoi, the Goyim took over, they destroyed the Jewish people. Where's gibber? Where's God's power? Where's noida? They took it out. For the Gemara, how could they change the nusach of Moshe? And for the Gemara, Metoich Sheyadu Sha'amiti Hu Loi Kizvu Boy. They knew that the definition of God is truth, and therefore they wouldn't lie. Their experience of Hashem did not include Hagibah Vaneda. They did not see Hashem's Gvura, Hashem's Yirah. They can't say it. They knew He's true, and therefore they're not going to lie. They're not going to make believe that they're experiencing what they're not experiencing. Okay. Anshe Knesset Hagdolah Hechziru Atorah L'Yoshna. They brought it back. Mordechai was before. Mordechai was at the end of the Galus Bavel of Shivim Shana. So the Hagibur and Anoida wasn't brought back yet. So the Nusach HaTfilah was completely, it was gone. They took it away. The Nusach that was cherished by Jews was gone. So Mordechai had to daven. He says, Vayizag za'aka g'doyla omora. He says, Kein Nusach hab ich nicht, aber schreien kann ich. A nusach I don't have, but screaming I could scream. The nusach HaTfilah didn't have. So that's the concept. There's no dibur. This is the pchin of harim hagvoyim la'ya'elim. So therefore, it's the shofar that is ma'oida the tamlichuni. If you go with words, how are you going to get into God? Where are you going to get to the bekatshe with words? Words can only bring you to a place, at best, of confined structure. Where are you going to get to the tamlichuni aleichem? It's a funny thing. You learn the Gemara. So here we have everybody learns this Gemara. God says, "Make me a king." Rosh Hashanah Daf Tezayin. How? Through blowing shofar. How do you make somebody a king through blowing shofar? Okay, now you became a king. Well, what's this? It's a joke. You want me to be a king? Say you're my king. Scream Yechi HaMelech like the Navi says. They scream Yechi HaMelech David La'olam. What's this b'shofar? B'meber shofar. Malchi is a chroinus. It's strange. But the vart is through words. How are you going to get to the Tamlichuni through words? How will words reach into his core, which is Bekatsha? It's impossible. So how is the Tamlichuni Aleichem? It's only one Nekuda. It's at the Chris's bris. That's Lamaila Metam Vedas. There's a deep, deep connection. That's beyond Tam Vedas. The Tamlichuni Aleichem is only when you reach into that space by reaching into your space of that Lamaila Metam Vedas. That's why you have to speak also about the Zechroinus. That's the Chris's bris. Yalla Zechroinchem Lefana L'Toiva. Who remembers things that are so distant? I'm not connected to these things. They're irrelevant to me. No. Once there's Tamlichuni Aleichem, there's Zechroinus. But it's always through Shofris. Always by Mebe Shofar. The Harim HaGvoyim, it's La'ye'elim. And that's the Poshet. It's not a Kafuf, it's Poshet. Is that the Ava should be removed from all curves, from all bends. It should be simple. There's no words. This Ava is very, very simple. It washes over the person. It's very not complicated. It's very not sophisticated. It's an Ava Pshut. It's a shofar. Rosh Hashanah shel yoel poshet. It's a wild goat, and it's a straight. You ever saw a wild goat's horn? Yoel poshet. It's not the Lebedike Shofis with all the curves. The Pchin of Pshittas. So he finishes, he says, V'zeu, that's what, back to Moshe, he continues. L'ma'an hokem oischa yoim loy la'am v'yilach kashen nishba la v'yisechel avram v'litzak l'Yaakov shehem p'chinas harim ha'gvoyim. They are the mountains. Ki bo'ever hanor yoshua v'yisechem. What do we say in the Haggadah from Yeshua? Your forefathers lived on the other side of the river. Here he goes again. What's the Nahar? Nahar is Yotzim Meyed and Lahashkas Asagan and Misham Yiparit. What's the river? Let's go back to the first river. The first river comes out from Eden to irrigate the garden, Umisham, and from there the river splits into four. You have the Tigris, Euphrates, Chidek El-Pras, Gichon, and Pishon. You remember the rivers? So the river comes into the Gan and it splits into four. So he says, like
or which is refracted through a prism.
The Nar is the or that's refracted, it's reflected through a prism. The beginning of diversity, which is all based on the Ein Sof, coming out to be able to be comprehension of Nivraim. So there's Pirut. Avol me'ever hanor. What's the other side of the river? Hula ma'ila min adas. P'chinas harim agvayim. Shamu p'chayrish p'chinas madregas avos. Avoiseichem, your fathers come from the other side of the river. Before the river comes out of Eden Lashkas Asagana Misham Yiparend, they're me'ever hanor. Umisham hoisa ashvua v'akrisis bris lias l'chala l'kim. From that space, that's where he made the oath with you. That's where he made the krisis bris with you to be your God and you'll be his nation. In other words, from his core, from the place that's beyond the Nor, from the other side of the Nor. Kasha nishbala v'yisecha was an oath. An oath is also a commitment beyond rationality. You can't break an oath. And it was an oath to who la v'yisecha. La v'yisecha represents in every Jew the Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, which are called the great mountains. This is the Ava Shalamayla Metam Vedas on the other side of the river. Halalukel B'Kotchoy. That's from where the relationship is, and that's why you could reach into that place. Kitzer was written by the Tzemach Tzedek, the grandson of the Balatanya, his daughter's son. Many Maimorim, he wrote a Kitzer at the end, an abbreviated Sachakel of everything. Yeah. If you have the Kitzer, you read the Kitzer, it's like a fast Chazara of all the main, like bullet points of the entire Maimer. Yeah.
It's in all the different printings?
Yeah. Likkutei Torah was published by the Tzemach Tzedek. Not on all, but on many Maimorim he made a Kitzer. Especially more intricate and detailed Maimorim, he made a Kitzer. And you'll see the Kitzer has 6 sections corresponding to the 6 chapters. The Maimer has 6 chapters. So Aleph summarizes the first chapter and this. Let's take a learn the Kitzer. Let's learn the Kitzer and then we'll move on. This Kitzer is from the Tzemach Tzedek.
Which page?
Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph, or page 89. So the Maimer finished. The Maimer concluded. If you could say on this Maimer, it's finished. And the Kitzer is an abbreviation, a summation, a tamtzis of the Maimer. As I said, written by the Tzemach Tzedek. Aleph. First ois, it's mamish, he just summarizes. Atem Nitzavim kulchem. First ois, he explains the pasuk Atem Nitzavim ayom kulchem. Al derech bis asef chuli yachad, referring to the pasuk by Hibashur Melech bis asef Rosh Yom Echad Shufti Yisrael. Liyos lachadim ebli yimotzi adam rosh v'sef. That Atem Nitzavim ayom kulchem, Moshe addresses the Jewish people from a perspective, a state of consciousness, where there's no head and there's no toe. There's no beginning and there's no end. As he explained at length, that anybody who's connected to the world of Kedusha, in the real world of Kedusha, there's never an absolute hierarchy. You're on the top, essentially, and I'm on the bottom. We have different functions, we have different roles, but just like in a healthy body, the head is a head, and it gives to the foot, and on another level, the head receives from the foot. And any normal person doesn't look at the foot and say, I don't really need you, you're stick garbage, let me just amputate you. Who b'chal needs you, you're nothing. That sense comes from only a person who, as he says, he's neufel, ta'alma de pruda, world of fragmentation, where he loses touch of igulim, of soiviv, of that achdos. Beis, v'hainu, kedei la'avrecha bebris. In Siv Beis he said, this unity is necessary, la'avrecha bebris, to enter into the covenant. V'hainu ki'ilu nasa la'achadim. The concept of a bris is when two separate people becomes as though they're mamish one. Al derech zen nemar, al davar zen nemar. On this it says ki chelik Hashem Amma, that Hashem and the Jewish people have a bris that's like 2 parts of one entity, so to speak. Val zen nemar hine anoichi kairis bris. As he explained with 2 best friends, David and Yonis, and they make a bris which demonstrates that they're really one. They're not anymore 2 separate people. So even though logically there's going to be reasons for us to get into a fight, nonetheless, there's the state where, just like with myself, I cover up my sins, with you too, I treat you as though you were me. Gimel, v'zeu inyan malchus v'zechronis shebet Rosh Hashanah. This brings us into Rosh Hashanah, the concept of malchus and zechronis. L'oir is galus malchusa yizbarach aleinu adei zichron habris. To arouse, to trigger the revelation of Hashem's Malchus on us through remembering this bris. Ubameh b'shofar, shubchines tshuva ilah bakshu panai pnimiyas alev. Shofar represents the deeper tshuva, the bakshu panai, search from my inner heart. V'nimshach aydeyas panecha Hashem avakesh. The pnimiyus alev comes when I search for the pnimiyus of Hashem. Ki mebchinas achri Hashem yelechu b'chinas ziv ha'ara. When you only relate to the ray of the divine, the acharei nimshach liyas ka'aryeh shebemerkava yisha. Then from there you become like a lion that roars, but it's a lion in the merkava. Shenikra adayin saika mechitzonius halev. It's very dramatic. A lion's roar is very, very frightening and dramatic. But it represents still a tzayka that comes from the chitzonius halev. And your hispilus, your enthusiasm comes from an inyan of chitzonius, from the ha'ara of Hashem in the world, from the godliness in the world. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chveidah b'atzmei hu rama misnasim in ma'isaylam v'zeh inyan eish oichlahu v'zeh inyan es panecha Hashem u'mizeh nimshach hatzayka b'pnimiyus halev by days of ma'ira l'mayla gili pnimiyus malchusi yisbarach aleinu. So it's through accessing that part in yourself, which is the shofar, beyond words, that you, so to speak, trigger that Hashem in His essence is moved to have a relationship, to be a melech. By days of ma'ira l'mayla gili pnimiyus malchusi yisbarach aleinu v'zeh inyan zechroinus zichron ha'ava pnimiyus matzmusi musi yisbarach. You'll say, how can you even reach there? What's the connection? It's completely aloof and beyond, pure infinity. And the answer is because zechroinus, because he remembers the love. And mitzad the love, he compelled his core to be connected to you, and therefore you have the koyach to create malchus because there's zechroinus. V'zeh inyan dalet, v'zeh inyan alukel b'kotcha, ki'uzah, v'roisiv, krev gudlai, ad b'seika shayfer. And hey, v'kol zo laman hakim oischa yoim loy la'am, ki ein melech b'lo yam, u'bazu abchinu akisher v'yichad v'bris ha'shekaris Hashem imanu. It's all because you wanted to make you a nation and there's no king without a people. But the people have to be similar to the king in the same frequency like the king. And this is the b'china where there becomes a unity, which is a krisis bris. Achsiv mishpat l'lekei Yaakov. But it says on Rosh Hashanah there's a mishpat, there's a yom hadin. If Yaakov can experience Elokei, the mishpat is for the God of Yaakov, how much Yaakov can experience this love. But tzarich la'oida zeh b'Rosh Hashanah. Zeh inyan imru l'fanei malchus v'zichroinus v'shofar on the day of Rosh Hashanah. Zeh inyan vav zeh inyan kasher yishbalav v'secha. That's why the pasuk continues, as he swore to your forefathers, ki be'eved anor hayotzeh me'eden yashma v'secha. Your forefathers lived on the other side of the river, representing the river that comes down out from Eden, beyond the Pirud, beyond Rekia Uzoi, Ubchinis la'avrecha bebris ad yaver amcha, elevating you to that space. V'nikra harim ha'gvoyim la'ya'elim. This is the greater mountains for the wild goats, which la'ya'elim is al derech zeh shofar shoshana shel yoel pashat. The harim ha'gvoyim come out through the yoel, through the shofar of Rosh Hashanah, which is a yoel pashat. Balzen nemar v'shakal b'pelas harim. He weighs mountains on a scale, and as he explained, the more than one side of the scale goes down, all the way down, the other one comes up. The shofar is the pnimiyus alev that comes from the distance. Tshuva beyond Torah mitzvahs, and that touches the pnimiyus ha'ava in the highest place of atzmos. That's the v'shakal b'pelas harim, where the gvoyas, the lower level of ava chitzonius alev, is the moznayim. It's totally in the burden of Torah mitzvahs, also like a scale where one side overpowers the other side. This is the kitzur of the Maimon.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.